Coming to you live from our Auckland Park studios, this is Prime News on SABC 3. Here are the top stories.
This morning, we woke up with an increased number.
A devastating winter storm in the Eastern Cape has left a trail of destruction, leaving at least 78 people dead. The National Prosecuting Authority has been handed a lifeline by the Supreme Court of Appeal to correct its wrongs in its first ever state capture case, the million-rand Nulane fraud matter.
South Africa has chosen to prioritize just energy transitions as engines of economic growth and social development.
President Ramaphosa says South Africa will use the G7 summit in Canada starting tomorrow to push the African agenda for just energy transition. Your evening news elevated, and a very warm welcome to you. I am Beki Mutumomolete, and I'll be guiding you through the stories that are redefining our world. This is Primetime Action on Prime News on 3. Let's get started. The death toll from the devastating floods in the Eastern Cape now stands at 78. 4 of the missing children are still unaccounted for. The Basic Education Minister, Siviwe Gwarube, witnessed the pain of the families who lost their children in the Mthatha floods firsthand.
Parents unable to contain their tears as they met some of the survivors of the devastating floods. Minister Gwarube also had a one-on-one session with one of the learners who was rescued from the overflowing river.
I think it also was very emotional for them seeing one of the children that survived the crash. She was one of the 3 that survived. She's here. But also I think what the MEC has emphasized today is the need for social workers that are here, because it's not just about the learners, it's about these families. These families are thoroughly broken.
The heavy rain caused severe damage to school infrastructure. More than 6,000 learners are reported to be affected by the disruption. The Eastern Cape is also in the midst of its mid-year examinations.
We have collected the data as from yesterday and the day before. Yesterday were around 58 schools that have been damaged quite severely.
The situation was very bad after the tragedy happened. The learners were very disturbed. It was even sad because they are writing their exams. Yesterday was even more painful.
In the meantime, the search for missing people will continue and the death toll is expected to rise further. Fundiso Mhlekude, SABC News, Mthatha.
Meanwhile, COGTA Minister Velenkosi Hlabisa says 4 provinces have been classified as disaster areas due to the recent storm that hit the country. They are the Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, the Free State and the Western Cape.
Today, we slept knowing the figure of 49 people deceased. This morning, we woke up with an increased number. These are human beings, some of them breadwinners, and some of them the only children in their respective families. This is a very big number to have been lost or to have perished on a single natural disaster which has ever been experienced in the Eastern Cape. 2, as of today, the classification of national disaster has been done. Dr. Stole, who is present here, the head of the National Disaster Management Center, in terms of the law, he has done the classification of the 4 provinces. The first province is Eastern Cape, followed by KwaZulu-Natal, followed by Free State, and followed by Western Cape, which are the 4 provinces that were affected during the past storm.
On that note, tonight we discuss the critical issue of disaster management in South Africa. Now, as we all know, effective disaster management is crucial for saving lives, reducing economic losses, and promoting community resilience. Today, we'll be exploring the government's strategies for disaster management, including preventative measures, early warning systems, emergency response plans, and public education campaigns. With us this evening to shed some light on this important issue is a climate change professor at University of KwaZulu-Natal, Dr. Tafadzwa Mabaudi. Welcome to Prime News on 3. Let's get straight into it. Government should have measures in place for disaster risk reduction. Do you believe that our government has effectively implemented the preventative measures that are outlined in the disaster management framework?
I do not think so. I think our government is more focused on relief and response as opposed to anticipation, preparedness, and early action, which would give us the capacity to ensure preventative measures and mitigate disasters like this. So I think there's a need to shift the focus from response to more of anticipation and early action.
And do we know what is being done around the issue of unplanned urbanization, which has led to houses being built on floodplains, wetlands, and coastal areas, increasing the risk of disasters?
So there's a need to have strict enforcement of development plans and legislation in that particular area of spatial planning and urban development. So there are frameworks that are there, but there's a general lapse or lack of enforcement and regulation, more so in tribal areas, traditional lands, where land is allocated by chiefs and headmen, who may not always be aware of flood risk vulnerability assessment or land use zoning in terms of where people can be located relative to hazards such as floods and other climate-related risks. So there are those gaps between what is there legislatively and then the people who are located in the localities who are then going on, with the business of allocating land to people, as well as a general lack of public awareness in terms of people themselves moving into some of these low-lying areas that are below the flood risk line.
Absolutely. And in fact, that was going to be my next question, was to see if you know if the public has been engaged in any way by means of regular drills and exercises to prepare responders. Do you have any knowledge of such plans?
So, according to the Disaster Management Act and Disaster Management Centers, local municipalities should have disaster response plans. But as far as I know, there are no frequent drills that are done. So often, and also the disaster management centers within local municipalities are not adequately staffed and adequately resourced. So usually it's a function that is assigned to one person to coordinate it at a municipal level. And the disaster management center usually is at a district council level and not at the local municipality level. So the function itself is not adequately resourced, it's not adequately capacitated, there is no updated plans, and there are also no drills or public awareness campaigns to sensitize the public.
Now, what is the importance of proactive disaster management rather than reactive responses?
The difference is saving lives. As opposed to dealing with the aftermath when lives have been lost. So that's the main difference. There are three ways of being proactive. There is at the individual level where you are building awareness in communities, individuals, key leaders within communities, sensitizing them to these risks, but importantly, alerting them to what needs to be done in terms of when there is a warning issued by the South African Weather Service. So this also includes building community-based warning systems so that communities are aware and can take measures to protect lives and property when there is a warning that is issued by the weather services. Anticipation also means having early warning systems in place and effective dissemination of these early warning systems, as well as capacity development of communities, so that if they get a warning, they should know what to do. They should know where to move, where to assemble, what the protocol is. So there are several things that really need to be done in terms of being proactive and therefore mitigating the risk of life being lost.
In closing, what measures could be taken to hold government accountable for their actions in disaster management, and what is the way forward for improving disaster response capabilities?
I think that it's a collective action, like I said. There's the individual, there's the community, there's structural things that need to be done where the private sector can partner with government to invest in climate resilient infrastructure, improve drainage in certain areas. Government needs to take a leading role in terms of setting the policy agenda, creating an enabling environment, investing in early warning systems, capacitating the disaster management centers within district and local municipalities, and building general public awareness. The media also, as the fourth estate in the country, can contribute towards building public awareness by engaging on the matters of climate change more routinely outside of disasters. And of course, we need finance to come in to partner with government and local institutions, local civil society actors, and universities within these places to develop solutions that are relevant and applicable to the local context in South Africa.
Thank you so much. I know we could go on forever on this issue, but time, unfortunately, is not on our side. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Tafadzwa Mabaudi. We appreciate your time. It's time for a short break. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back. The National Prosecuting Authority has been handed a lifeline by the Supreme Court of Appeal to correct its wrongs in its first ever state capture case, the R1 million Nulani fraud matter. This after CSA, in a judgment today in favor of the NPA in its appeal against the 2023 judgment of acting Judge Gusha, which discharged the Gupta-linked accused in terms of Section 174 of the Criminal Procedure Act. The CSA found, amongst other things, that the High Court committed numerous errors of law and subsequently ordered that the respondents may be retried for the same offences, in respect of which they were acquitted by the Free State High Court on 21st April 2023, as if they had not been previously arraigned, tried and acquitted, provided that a different judge shall preside over the trial. President Cyril Ramaphosa says South Africa will use the G7 summit in Canada starting tomorrow to push the African agenda for just energy transition. The president has reiterated that the just energy transition on the continent will happen at the pace and scale conducive to Africa's developmental conditions.
Africa must unite, and South Africa will use its G20 presidency to advocate for the developmental needs of the continent.
During its G20 presidency, as you heard, South Africa has chosen to prioritize just energy transitions as engines of economic growth and social development. We will be proceeding to Canada to attend the G7 in just a few days. And this is the message that we will be projecting to the leaders of the G7, that our remit, our objective with our G20, the South Africa's G20, is to focus precisely on issues of energy.
Government also used the occasion to launch the South African Renewable Energy Master Plan, SAREM.
SAREM is not just a roadmap for expanding renewable energy generation. It is a blueprint for how to industrialize through energy.
The Western Cape says it is working with the Eastern Cape and Northern Cape on exploring green hydrogen.
Here in the Western Cape, we're also playing our part We are already 2,000 megawatts into our own plans here in our municipalities across the province.
Ulelani Philip, SABC News, Cape Town.
Thank you for staying with us. Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa has paid tribute to the late former Zambian President Edgar Lungu and described his death as a loss to all the people in the SADC region. Mnangagwa, who signed the Book of Condolences at the Zambian Embassy in Harare, described the late Lungu as a man who had foresight in terms of development and collaboration between several countries.
We were students together. We are former students together at law school. So he's really my college mate. So there's a lot of history between me and him and several other Zambian leaders, because I had all my education, my university in Zambia. And at law school, we were together. Of course, he was junior, I was senior at the university. Well, we have lost one of our illustrious leaders in the region. He was committed not only to provide leadership to the people of the Republic of Zambia, but to the rest of the region. He was one of us. He was a man who had foresight for the development and collaboration between SADC countries. We work together very, very well. So it's a big loss to all of us.
In the sports zone, Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus will give opportunities to as many talented players as possible in the upcoming season without compromising the team's winning culture. The coach invited more than 60 of the country's top players to this week's training camp in Johannesburg and is satisfied that his dual target can be achieved.
With the exception of Bulls players involved in the United Rugby Championship final, Erasmus gained some first-hand knowledge this week of what he has available to fulfill his ambitious task. His big goal is another World Cup victory in 2027, and he wants players in that squad with enough experience.
If you look too far ahead, you forget about the present. So, no, we want to try to win all the games. Well, go with the mindset of trying to win all the games. That's not being arrogant, and that's the mindset we want to go in with. But for sure, we're not going to use only 25, 27 players this year. The plan is to really broaden not just squad depth, also experience. You know, not to just guys just 1 and 2 caps. So when we get to the next World Cup, hopefully we don't have lots of players under 15 caps. That would be ideal.
The first challenge is against the Barbarians in Cape Town on the 28th of this month.
There's not a lot of analysis that we can do on them, so I guess we'll focus a lot on ourselves for that game. But yes, it is an opportunity to maybe some of the players who hasn't played for a while, maybe was in Japan. I probably think there won't be a lot of Bulls players in that specific game, just because the Bulls will only arrive next week Tuesday with us, and then to get a few of the other guys who maybe hasn't played for the Springboks.
After the Barbarians, the Springboks will take on Italy and Georgia in July. Harry Olivier, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, the cold front has definitely landed and we are feeling the effects. Your forecast is the compass that will navigate you through. Our weather team is on standby with your update. Stay tuned.
A very good evening to you. Let's take a look now at all your weather details for the next few days. Clear skies expected through the Northern Cape and Western Cape in towards the Eastern Cape overnight. A cold night in store for the Free State and northeastern parts of South Africa, with some partly cloudy skies on the horizon just northwards of Durban in KwaZulu-Natal. Now head towards Friday's forecast. Sunny conditions prevail through the central parts and eastern coastline of South Africa, while we have some partly cloudy skies expected in the northern parts of the country. Otherwise, sunshine prevails through the Northern Cape and Western Cape as well. Be on the lookout for hot, dry, windy conditions, or dry and windy conditions rather, that could produce fault fires through the northern parts of the Northern Cape. Onto your overnight temperatures, Alexandra Bay dropping down to 16 degrees, Cape Town down to a cold 6 degrees overnight, Gqeberha 8 degrees this evening, Durban 13, Bethlehem and Bloemfontein both down to a 1 degree, Sutherland -3, whilst Johannesburg dips to 5 and Polokwane down to a minimum of 4 degrees. Polokwane up to 19 degrees tomorrow, Johannesburg 18, Vryburg in the northwest up to 20 degrees, low 20s expected in Uppington, whilst Alexandra Bay warms up to about 32. fires possible, so please be on the lookout. Cape Town up to 24 degrees, Gqeberha almost into the mid-20s at 23, East London up to just 22 on Friday. In towards Saturday's forecast, we're expecting a cold day through the central parts of the Northern Cape. Sunny conditions, though, through the Western Cape and in towards the Northern Cape and Eastern Cape. Expect cold conditions through the interior of the Eastern Cape, though, and cold conditions continuing in Gauteng with some partly cloudy skies possible. And then ahead towards the end of the weekend, Sunday sees sunny skies returning towards Gauteng, partly cloudy conditions dominating the eastern escarpment, whilst it'll be nice and sunny through the East Coast provinces in towards the Western Cape and Northern Cape. That's it from me. Keep warm and have a good evening.
As we sign off for the night, remember staying ahead is just a click away. Thank you for choosing Prime on 3. From myself, Becky, and the team, stay warm. Good night.